moving on quickly into Lebanon, we are going to be talking about all of the shit that Israel is engaging in once again. Israel has bombed Beirut. Remember, Beirut is not southern Lebanon. It's not like villages and towns. It's just straight up like a metropolitan city in the middle of a sovereign nation. There are videos from friends, people that I know, people in my community that live in fucking Beirut. You know what I mean? Like, there are a shit ton of people, both in this community, people that you're familiar with, like people's parents. It is akin to bombing Istanbul. It is akin, and if you think Istanbul is also out of touch and out of reach and you can't comprehend it, it's like bombing fucking New York, okay? It is like if 9/11 was happening again. I know that a lot of people are joking like, oh, it's the New York of America or whatever. Like, this is not a joke, okay? Beirut literally is no different than any other fucking city in Europe, any other city anywhere else on the planet. But for people who only have the capacity to view like Westerners as real human beings, the capital of Lebanon, I mean, it has 2.5 million people in it. It is literally no different than any other goddamn metropolitan city. It's the capital. It is utterly repulsive. It is completely unacceptable, disgusting. It is an act of war once again, but Israel gets to do it as always. And if you fucking say Israel doesn't get to do it, then you obviously are anti-Semitic and should be also put in prison. Great stuff. Overall, fantastic, wonderful. Seems really cool. We should just not rein this shit in at all. Here is Israel's supposed reasoning for doing it. The rationale behind the attack was that Nasrallah refused to decouple Hezbollah from Hamas and stop the fighting on the northern border. Therefore, the decision was to take him out of the decision-making picture. Great stuff. It's just, this is literally what I said yesterday and the day before. Israel could nuke Lebanon and America would be on board with it, okay? Yeah, here, this is, Lebanon was living in peace and tranquility in 1976, and then came Hezbollah, which is such a fucking stupid ass thing to say. Classic anti-theist attitude here. I was just at a beach in Lebanon less than 2 weeks ago where everyone was in bathing suits as skimpy as in Miami, you freak. Also, who cares? Arabs are only worthy of your life if their women wear bikinis. Are the bikinis the only way to humanize us? You pervert. You should be embarrassed. Seek help and leave us alone. Looking at Lebanon and trying to do that like Egypt or Iraq or Afghanistan style shit is so funny because Lebanon still is obviously an incredibly diverse, multi-ethnic, and also multi-religious country. Maybe to a fault almost. So it's like hilarious to be like, oh, look at what Hezbollah did. Look at what Lebanon used to look like. It's like, bitch, Lebanon still looks like that. The fuck are you talking about? Have you met a Lebanese person? They're gay as fuck. And I'm not saying that about Austin, like in general, dude. It's so fucking annoying. These people know nothing about anything. Yeah, you do not get to do the Iran pre-1979 thing with Lebanon. People wear all kinds of clothing. Bars line up and down the block in Beirut. There are gay nightclubs. And it doesn't matter. I think Raina's take is even better than Seamus's take on this one. Because, like, it shouldn't matter. Like, you can't justify... You can't use this like dehumanization to be like, see, look at how barbaric and backwards they are, which is why we have to bomb them into the fucking Stone Age. Like, what kind of argument are you making? I hate that shit. But, and by the way, in terms of like killing Hassan Nasrallah, what a lot of these people fail to fucking recognize from where they're standing is that someone else will always fill the void. It doesn't fucking matter if Yahya Sinwar is assassinated. It doesn't matter if Hassan Nasrallah is assassinated. These are not people that are like, I mean, they're very smart tacticians, okay? You might not agree with their methods. You might not agree with their worldview. I certainly don't in terms of like their own personal domestic affairs. But ultimately, they are smart tacticians. They're very well read. Overall, though, there's going to be another person that replaces them. You might put a stay on the resistance. You might soften the resistance for a brief moment, but ultimately, if you continue pummeling these areas, there are going to be new Hassan Nasrallahs propping up. There are new Hassan Nasrallahs right now. Smart tacticians, a unique way of saying coordinating terrorist attacks. Dude, stop doing this, okay? You can't do this while we're watching the fucking smoke in the midst of Beirut. Your understanding of terrorism and my understanding of terrorism clearly is not the same. You literally simply just say, oh, they're the brown guys, they're the Muslims, they're the terrorists, they're the bad guys. Stop with this fucking idiotic black and white, incredibly infantile understanding of the situation. God damn, dude. Oh no, it's you don't understand. Terrorists are the bad guys, and our allies are the good guys. Duh, obviously. They're the good guys no matter what they do. Even in this circumstance, they're the good guys, right? Because they're targeting the bad guys. You are a baby-brained liberal dipshit if you genuinely believe this. Yeah, you can't level 6 apartment buildings in the middle of a 2.5 million population, dense metropolitan area in an entirely sovereign nation, and then turn around and be like, actually, the guys who were in the midst, like inside of those buildings, they are the terrorists. Like, you can't say that. Or you can, and you can say that in American media. You just can't say that here and not expect some kind of retaliation. There are human beings in those buildings. They are now dead. There are people in this community whose family members live in and around the vicinity. There are community members in my community that live in and around the vicinity. You're an animal if you think that this kind of attack is justifiable. And also remember, we're not just giving them the bombs to do this. We are also supplying them with surveillance. Like the United States of America, your taxpayer dollars are literally paying American airplanes, surveillance aircraft to surround the region and offer new bombing targets to the Israeli military, which then turns around and uses our fighter jets to drop our 2,000-pound munitions. So when Biden says, oh man, this sucks, what are we doing here? Oh man, how are we going to do this? Like, what's happening here? Well, we got to stop Israel. Like, it's fucking bullshit, okay? They are not only not restraining Israel, they're also supporting Israel. They're funding and facilitating Israel. They're giving Israel. They added a $9 billion additional defense package to Israel literally 2 days ago. 2E, 3B Sentry AWACS off Lebanon with transponder switched off, and the aircrafts reappear a few minutes after the bloody airstrikes on Beirut. There is no coincidence the U.S. helps Israel bombing Lebanon on a daily basis. The reason why they don't admit it is because they know Israel systematically kills civilians during their airstrikes. Is this the Democratic Party? This is the Uniparty. If you think that America is going to change trajectory on its foreign policy because a Democrat is in charge or a Republican is in charge, you're out of your fucking mind. Here, add insult to injury. A photo of Netanyahu giving the order to strike Beirut tonight from New York, destroying several apartment buildings, ordering U.S.-funded war crimes from U.S. soil right after giving a speech to the United Nations about how Israel yearns for peace. Benjamin Netanyahu is almost like an Osama bin Laden-like figure in terms of like destroying or showing to the world like the ways in which the international rule-based order is a complete lie. There is no bigger flex. There is no bigger demonstration of this lie than that. You're on American soil. You're using American weapons. You're using American targeting systems, American surveillance to drop American munitions on a sovereign nation in the midst of the United Nations meetings happening where you delivered a speech about how you yearn for freedom. That's it. When America says, oh my God, how are they doing this? What are we supposed to do? We're just trying to stop Israel from behaving this way. It's like, dude, you're not. You're not trying to stop Israel from behaving this way. You love it. You love the death and destruction. You fund it. You facilitate it. You support it. You give the weapons. You give the surveillance to Israel.
Absolutely.
You even pro-America, bro? I am, dude. I don't think you are, though, because being pro-Israel does not mean you're a pro-America. I would say that my commentary on this is more pro-America than like 99% of our politicians. I don't think that we should allow a sovereign nation, right, a foreign nation, to just engage in bloody hell, in death and destruction, funded by our taxpayer dollars. I don't think that that is appropriate. I think that that is unimaginably un-American. If there is any sort of like principle behind like being an American and wanting America to be the world police and be the good guys in every story, then this demonstrates that we are the bad guys in this story. This is precisely the reason why there are people in the State Department that don't even agree with the Biden camp and Anthony Blinken and the way that they are continuing on giving Israel free rein to behave in the ways that it is. Because they also recognize that obviously this is diminishing America's soft power capabilities. The world stage is cooked. All of the organs of the international organs of justice that you normally could use tirelessly against your foreign adversaries to get them to do the right thing or whatever and apply like, you know, deploy sanctions packages or whatever. All of that is cast aside in this circumstance because everyone goes, the fuck do you mean you hate Russia? The fuck do you mean? What do you mean that Russia is doing wrong things here? Look at what you're fucking doing in Gaza. Look at what you're doing in Beirut. And for a lot of people, that's how they see it. All of a sudden, like I keep repeating over and over again, 800 military bases around the world will look like 800 military occupations around the world if America's soft power capabilities go away. It no longer will be a military partnership and a firm commitment and an allegiance to the United States of America in terms of keeping global security. It all of a sudden becomes an active invasion. Got to protect national interests. I just described to you from a pro-State Department, pro-America position why allowing Israel to reign bloody terror in the region is genuinely diminishing America's national interest on the global stage. So you're wrong. You just said that because that's a thing you've heard. You've never actually analyzed what that means. You've never actually thought about what that means. Because if you had actually put some thought into it, you would recognize that America's undying loyalty to the state of Israel, an apartheid state that is currently actively committing genocide and has started a new front in another sovereign nation in its NSIG, and the way that it's analyzed from the rest of the world, including our Western European allies. This is even more significant than just like the global South. The global South has always had a distaste for American empire for obvious reasons. But now you even have Western European allegiances on shaky ground. If you don't think that this is a genuinely devastating misstep, you just got to wait till Trump says it, and then you'll repeat it. When Trump goes around and says, they ruined our partnerships. They said I was bad. They said the world laughed at me, but the world laughed at them. Now look, England is going against our wills. They're not even giving money to Israel. They're not giving weapons to Israel. And then you'll repeat it, and you'll be like, hell yeah, he's right. Peaceful dove, baby. IDF spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari says it's a precise strike on a central headquarters of Hezbollah, which was intentionally built under residential buildings in Beirut in order to use them as human shields. That's interesting. IDF headquarters in Tel Aviv is walking distance to a hospital, markets, theaters, etc. It's actually a really good point. I've talked about this many times over. It doesn't even matter to most people. That's the problem. That's why I don't even bring it up, because people don't care. Because a lot of this attitude revolves around might is right. That's it. Might is right. Israel has the capabilities to do this. Israel can do this. No, Israel's enemies cannot, and that's it. Not only does it not matter if they actually successfully assassinated Hassan Nasrallah, we don't know if that actually happened, but even if it did, it still doesn't matter. It doesn't change the dynamic. It doesn't change the mindset of people that watch their families ripped apart, that have to literally seek through the rubble to see if their baby in a cradle is still there. Like those people are still going to hate Israel. Do you understand? Like, assassinating or decapitating the leadership does not change the dynamic at all. Someone else will take their place, because ultimately this is still a war of emancipation for many people. This is precisely the reason why I don't make the argument. I mean, the dynamic is a little different in like a place like Russia. The dynamic is a little different because there's like unitary executive on principle. It's just like one singular force that has a lot of control over what's going on. The ambitions of one man can lead entire armies in the case for like Russia, for example. Having said that, however, I don't make the same argument for fucking Benjamin Netanyahu. It's not like if Benjamin Netanyahu was assassinated that Israel would stop. That's why I make the argument that America has to fucking use its levers of control in this circumstance to put Israel, to rein in Israel, okay? To put Israel in its place, to tell them to fucking dial it back. Because without that level of control, without that lever of power, it doesn't matter. If Benjamin Netanyahu is dead, there's going to be another freak that takes his place. What has to happen is the large partner in this coalition telling them to dial it the fuck back. New Israeli defense officials estimate that some 300 people were killed in the Israeli strike on Beirut, according to Haaretz. Nice. So it's probably more than that. Like, think about it. If they killed 300 civilians and got Hassan Nasrallah, that's a 300 to 1. Is that justifiable? I don't think so.
6 buildings leveled. The casualty numbers are just coming in. What are you seeing and hearing?
Well, as you mentioned, Bianna, we've just heard from the Ministry of Health that at least 2 people were killed, 76 were injured in those massive blasts that targeted Beirut's southern suburbs. As we understand, of course, from the Israeli military, the target of those strikes was the leader. They say it was a command center, but what we understand from my colleague Jeremy Diamond, according to a security official, a senior Israeli official, that the target was the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah. And that is the big question right now.
For the record, I told you that this was going to happen after Gaza. The moment that Israel changed its trajectory towards Hezbollah and Lebanon in general, I told you that Western media was going to start using the exact same terminology to a T. The exact same terminology. It's actually human shields. They're using human shields. Lebanon is using human shields. Anyone in the crosshairs of Israel is always using human shields, okay? And we just have to shoot through those human shields. There's nothing else we can do. The passive voice Western media does when it comes to Israel makes me feel like I'm going to get an ulcer. Yeah.
Well, what happens if you remove Hassan Nasrallah? Who do you get in his place? Who picks up? Is it somebody more radical? And remembering that Hassan Nasrallah is not a military commander per se. He has all those military commanders underneath of him. He's more of a sort of a figurehead, a leader, absolutely in command, absolutely the top of, the top person within Hezbollah, no doubt about his authority. But when he says, I want this done, I want this done, I want this done, it's the commanders, the military commanders underneath of him who realize that. So therefore the question becomes, what happens if you remove him? It's not going to stop the organization functioning, although clearly the organization is absolutely on the back foot. It's been decimated in many ways. Commander,
I mean, he's right. It doesn't stop. It doesn't. There is no military solution to these issues. Okay, just like there's no military solution to Hamas, there's no military solution to Hezbollah either. That's it. And Israel knows that. They just don't give a shit. Okay, they just use the military solution as a justification for doing death and destruction, dealing death and destruction. And it's wild that they do not even mention this as anything but a successful, targeted, precise military strike. They don't mention 6 buildings demolished. They don't mention the hundreds of civilians that are under the rubble right now. It's crazy. It is a complete abdication of responsibility. This is not journalism at all. The U.S. Embassy is not evacuating U.S. citizens at this time. There is a commercially available flight that U.S. citizens who express interest in departing Lebanon will have to book and pay directly with the airline, as of this morning from the U.S. Embassy in Beirut, because it does not matter how many Americans get killed by Israel. I need to reiterate this. I told you this already. They do not care. Israel can kill you, and we will do nothing about it, because you have now dropped down on your order of priority in the hierarchy of dual citizenship. You're down in the bottom of the ladder, right next to the Palestinians. You're still above them, but you're right next to them. Families are flocking to the ERs asking about their loved ones, but the ERs are empty. There are no bodies to even bury because they're buried in the rubble. They use bunker busters, dude. Sean called it a few weeks ago. USA will throw Americans to the wolves if it means helping Israel. Yeah. Sean said, some people are mad at me for saying Biden would happily trade U.S. lives for continued support for Israel genocide, but that's not even a stretch. It's just already happening in reality. The IDF can kill as many Americans as it likes as far as the White House is concerned. It's true, but like if you're more mad at him for saying this and then world events prove this to be the reality, what do you do in that situation? Do you actually change your analysis, or do you just lean into it further and find a different reasoning for why it was justifiable? And a lot of people do the second thing. They just dig their fucking heels in, you know? One thing people may be missing is why Lebanon, a complex nation state, doesn't have an integrated air defense system or even smaller anti-air missile systems. It's because the U.S. led an effort to ban Lebanon for ever having weapons like that. Yeah, they banned it because Hezbollah is there. To the residents of the southern suburbs of Beirut, Lailaki neighborhood, Munir Shadid building, and neighboring buildings as shown on the map. Al Hadath neighborhood, Sheet building, and adjacent buildings shown on the map. Al Hadath district, Al Salam complex. You are located near Hezbollah interests, and for your safety and the safety of your loved ones, you're obliged to evacuate the buildings immediately and move away from them at a distance no less than 500 meters. Now, what you need to understand here is that they're saying they are going to start blowing up buildings again. But what you also need to understand is that this announcement is coming at midnight. This announcement is coming to the Lebanese population at midnight. The estimation from today's attack so far, the death toll so far, I believe, is at 700. Like the total death toll is at 700. Death toll in Israeli strikes on Beirut rises to 6. The number of people killed in Israel's bombing of southern Beirut has risen to 6, with 91 wounded. Lebanon's health ministry said the death toll is likely to rise significantly as the attack brought 6 residential towers down to the ground. The Israeli estimation is 300, more than 700 since September 23rd until today, September 27th, and that death toll is expected to skyrocket still. One thing I want to repeat to people is that all of the Israel defenders on the timeline were talking about how fantastic this operation was and how brilliant and technical it was when they were talking about the pagers. And they kept repeating like, excuse me, what do you expect them to do? Like, you're calling that an act of terror, but like it was so targeted and so precise. It's so much better than carpet bombing Beirut, right? And now they have carpet bombed Beirut. So where are all those people who said, oh, well, that would be unconscionable? As expected, they're literally defending the carpet bombing of Beirut. So never have a conversation with these fucking idiots about like what their morality is, okay? They don't care. They don't care. They just want to defend Israel. That's all it is. I was pissing off the dude who beat them in 06 a W. It would be a W if they killed him. Israel is very cowardly in the way that it works. They are afraid of the diaper brigade getting their shit pushed in, so they will never actually go in and invade militarily before they actually reduce the entire ground in the rubble. And that's precisely what they're doing here. They're blowing up everything in sight. They're trying to cause as much terror as possible. And only when they feel safe will they try and like move their tanks in. And they won't even offer like troop coverage of their fucking tanks. And then they'll get murked again and again and again. But here, it's all good because the American military will defend them. What is this? This shit really helps explain how the Lebanese are feeling. Lebanese podcast in English explaining how they will get killed.
Asking us to help, showing us death and destruction. No one did fucking shit. So I have zero expectations that anybody's coming to save us, bro. We're going to fucking die alone. And we're going to live stream you guys are going to get another live stream, another live stream, the genocide on your phones. And it's just only going to cost you a few tax dollars. And it might seem crazy, but like, we might die. We might die, bro. We might.
No.
Less likely to die than people in the South, but so we might die in this conflict, just sitting here doing our thing. They might decide to blow up the shirkat al-Kahrabaء air, just die, driving on a bridge, blow it up, go to a hospital, blow it up. Then they'll say that we were Hezbollah agents and we were hiding weapons or whatever. You know, they'll come up with any excuse. The hospital had weapons. The school was on top of a weapons cache. Thank you to our patrons. If you want to support us, we're an independent YouTube channel living through a war right now. So we appreciate your support. Habura, Zaryura, and Josfir, welcome to the family. To everyone in the South, stay safe. To everyone in Lebanon.
That's it, bro. It don't matter what your background is. Like, you don't have to be a card-carrying Shia Hezbollah supporter, dude. At the end of the day, the American bombs being deployed by Israeli Air Force, that does not distinguish between you and Hezbollah anyway.
The level of the compromise really is breathtaking. I mean, almost all of the senior leadership has been killed. When I look at this, given Hezbollah's internal security practices, you know, normally folks would interrogate each other, but clearly they were compromised at a level that was above interrogation by Hezbollah counterintelligence. You've got a lot of problems here. First off, much of the missile inventory and the ability to produce it has been destroyed. And then the other problem is when they recruit, you know, they're going to see people who have a level of mistrust in their own organization, and that will have a profound morale effect upon recruits, potential recruits, and members of the organization. So even if it reconstitutes itself, it will be much more poorly armed, much less coordinated, and its morale and fighting spirit will be significantly degraded, probably for a generation.
This dude has literally no clue at all about the psyche of the Shias. If he's saying he'd be dissuaded from joining Hezbollah in the future, yeah, no. Kind of funny for like a DC strategic studies guy to say this, like a DC think tank guy to say this from the National Defense University, because the entire history of the United States military occupation has always resulted in more people joining the fight.
You know, as I listen to you, you mentioned the provenance of Hezbollah's weapons, many of which come from Iran. On the flip side, many of Israel's weapons come from the U.S. So I'm wondering, as I see these hits on Beirut, the U.S. has come in for an enormous amount of criticism for continuing to supply Israel with weapons that have been used to kill Palestinians. As I watch these live pictures, I wonder, isn't the U.S. again going to come in for criticism if Lebanese people die under American-made bombs?
Yes,
the
that's
superpower,
right.
the superpower could act in a different way, right? Because the superpower is saying they want a ceasefire, is saying they don't want a military escalation, is saying they want a ceasefire. They have presented a plan which their ally Israel has completely snubbed, apparently hasn't
Yes.
even bothered to answer to. The U.S. could actually pull its weapons, but what it has done instead is in the last 24 hours commit itself to another package of military aid worth $8.5 billion to Israel.
So when a security partner goes against the current American policy, there is the possibility of doing that. But there seems to be a misconception. I don't think you share it, and I don't think your analysts do, but there's a popular misconception that somewhere in Washington there's a switch, and if that switch is flicked, the airplanes fall from the sky. The fact of the matter remains, Israel has a robust domestic arms industry, and there are stockpiles that have been built up over the years.
Sure.
So if the United States adopts the ultimate in coercion, just stops all things, it would take years to have an effect on Israeli operations.
He's lying.
Would
Israel was shut down and collapsed in its entirety if America withdrew its support from Israel tomorrow. And everyone in Israel knows this. And that's precisely the reason why there's a multi-billion-dollar propaganda operation forward-facing, just focusing specifically on the Western world to delicately tailor every Israeli action to Western sensibilities to justify it. It's fucking bullshit. Anyone who tells you that Israel would be able to operate this way without American support is a fucking abject liar. They know the truth. The Israeli society might not know the truth because some of them are fucking bloodthirsty. Ultimately, everyone in the military-industrial complex is definitely aware of this reality, okay? If it was so negligible, we would have stopped our weapons transfers already, by the way, but we haven't.
That's right. The Israeli military has said that there is no option they will not use, that if a ground invasion into southern Lebanon is necessary, that they would do that. But they didn't really say it would be as a last resort. They just said that they would do that if necessary, and that, in fact, preparations are being...
I got to explain something to you, okay? When Russia did this to Ukraine, there was a lot more eyeballs and attention on the matter. When Israel does it to Lebanon, it's just another Friday. Just understand that. When Russia was doing this to Ukraine, all attention was on this. All Western media was talking about it. That's all people would talk about. No justifications, no holds barred, completely unacceptable atrocity, which it was, for the record. It was. Russia's invasion of Ukraine was unjustifiable, brutal, bloody, completely unacceptable. But I want you to understand something. Like, these are real people, just like Ukrainians are real people, getting blown to bits in their homes, and there is no interest whatsoever from the Western world. Even this community, like, normally people will be tuning in to see what the is going on, but there isn't even like real attention to it in the same degree. And I think part of that is because dead brown people are seen as a nuisance, whereas dead white people are a very different dynamic. You know, that's it. Like, think about it with October 7. October 7, front page headlines everywhere. Every outlet stopped and changed their coverage to breaking news, updates from Israel. Meanwhile, it's either omission or a complete collaboration with the state of Israel. The dynamic is definitely different. They've already switched away to the hurricane death toll in Georgia. Now, this is a devastating atrocity, don't get me wrong, and this deserves coverage. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because the human toll is not calculated in the same way when it is the victims are victims of, you know, a Western imperialist endeavor. If you even for a moment think that they'd be talking about Harris speaking at the border soon as CNN on October 7, you'd be wrong.